Hello and thanks for joining me. Let's chat for a bit about Kiss of the Spider-Woman by Manuel Puig. This is the most recent book that I finished, and following this chat, I will also touch base on what I'm currently reading as well as what my planned next read is going to be. But Kiss of the Spider-Woman, Manuel Puig, this was originally published in 1976. It's my understanding that it was published in Spain, from what I could gather. I might be wrong about that, but this is from my memory. Even though the author, Manuel Puig, is from Argentina and the book is set in Argentina, I believe the publisher, the first publisher was in Spain. From what I read, I think the first English language translation came out in 1979. This particular edition is a 1991 UK edition. So I bought this on the used book market, online, and wound up with a UK edition somehow. But it was cool. I love this cover. Kiss of the Spider-Woman. So yeah, I wanted to read this. This was a movie back in 1985, kind of a big deal. The movie was a Best Picture nominee, and the lead actor, William Hurt, won Best Actor for his portrayal of Molina, one of the prisoners in Kiss of the Spider-Woman. And then the book eventually was also a play, as well as had a run on Broadway as a musical, and the musical version of Kiss of the Spider-Woman won a Tony Award for the Best Musical of 1993, I think. Yeah, I wrote it down so I wouldn't get it wrong. So I had heard about Kiss of the Spider-Woman. I saw the movie when it came out in the mid-'80s, and then it was on Broadway, had a really pretty long run on Broadway, and so I had always really meant to read it because after seeing the movie, I thought, I bet there's more to this story than the movie, so I was kind of curious like what the book was about based on, just having seen the movie. But as it turned out, William Hurt, in the movie version, really channeled Molina, really did a great job exactly. I don't know if it's because I'd already seen the movie before I read the book that I pictured him as Molina, but he just has the character of Molina. I just feel, sometimes that's not always the case. When you see a movie first and then read the book, you think, wow, there's really a disconnect there between how they portrayed this character in the movie versus in the book. But I found the Molina in the book to be very, I found the Molina portrayed by William Hurt to be very much in line with what I portrayed, how I pictured him in the book. But what it's about is it's set in mid-70s Argentina, a prison. So there are two prisoners. Molina is a homosexual who's been jailed on a morals charge. It's I think it's corruption of a minor, I think. And then his cellmate is a political prisoner, Valentin. So Valentin is a political prisoner, kind of a revolutionary, and they are very different men with very different worldviews, really, completely different worldviews. But they find themselves in this prison cell, and then as each night, how the story's told is kind of unusual because it's actually the dialogue. I'll just open it up at random, and you can kind of see the little kind of the dashes that lets you know a different person's speaking. So it's kind of like a script. The way that it's written, it's just the dialogue. It's not any kind of description or anything like that. So we get to know the characters through this dialogue, and it's almost always a dialogue after their lights out. So in this prison, they have a lights out at some point in the night, and at this point, Molina will tell a movie. He'll tell a movie like in great depth to sort of transport them to another reality, and to pass the time. And this is sort of how they spend their evenings. And we get a glimpse into their life through their dialogue. Like, we get to know the characters, because what will happen sometimes is Molina, who's this revolutionary, he's very much a pragmatist, a realist, very grounded in action. and grounded in the reality, the hard realities of the world, as opposed to Melina, who is retreats sort of into a fantasy world and wants to only see the beautiful things of the world. And so in the movies, so he describes these movies like these are old black and white movies that he describes, you know, in great detail. And sometimes Melina will like interrupt with a wisecrack about something, you know, like Melina will be very descriptive, like what the woman's wearing. You know, she comes out in an evening gown, and he describes the evening gown, how her hair is, and Melina might say something, kind of lose patience with all the kind of these details, and you know, he'll say something kind of a wisecrack, and it hurts Melina's feelings, and he'll get upset. So this is kind of at the beginning when their relationship, you know, develops and is developing, but you know, it's really kind of cool the way that dialogue worked for me. You know, when I look back on the book, I don't want to give away what happens ultimately, but in the book, because there would be spoilers, but the way that just getting this little glimpse into these nighttime conversations between these two people, really, I really felt like I got to know really both of them through this method, and I thought that was so cool because it was such an unusual sort of way to, I think, tell this story. But like I said, Melina is sort of he works as, when he was out, not in prison, he worked as a window dresser, so he's kind of an artistic type person, and then he loves movies, and then Melina, like I said, is a revolutionary. Melina gets food delivered from the outside. Of course, nobody visits Valentin because he's in a subversive group, and so nobody from his group is going to come visit him, so he doesn't get food from the outside. But Melina makes little treats and, you know, shares his food with them, and they basically develop a life, you know, with each other, develop a relationship with each other there in the cell, and then things aren't always exactly as they appear, and, you know, the story kind of goes from there. And then by the time we get on later in the novel, it's sort of the roles have sort of switched. I'll just say that much about it. The roles have kind of switched, where we started out with Melina being this artistic, wanting to only see the beauty in the world and sort of hide from reality in old movies and things, and Melina wanting to be the realist, you know, engaged with the real world and trying to change things and make things better. You know, so their roles sort of switch, and that's not really giving away anything with the plot. But, you know, at the end of it all, it's really quite a beautiful story. I wanted to read it. You know, I think when I saw the movie way back when, I wondered about the Spider-Woman. I wanted to understand the Spider-Woman a little more, because there's several movies that are told through the course of the novel. Some of them are real movies, and I actually recognized 3 of them. One of them, there was an incredible synchronicity with the universe. I literally only watched this movie last week, just a couple of days before. Really, I think probably about 3 days before I read it, in the description of it in this book, as Melina tells the movie, and I thought about whether or not I should actually say which movie it was, and I decided not to, because it was kind of fun for me to recognize the movies. I didn't recognize one of them because it was a German movie, but there were 3 of them that I recognized, and then I think 2 of the movies might be fictional. I'm not exactly sure. If they are movies, I don't know what they refer to, but yeah, so I thought that was kind of a cool synchronicity, and I had kind of fun with figuring out, like, I was like, oh my gosh, I just saw this movie. The movies aren't told exactly like the movie. I mean, I only know this because I just saw one of them, and so I know that Molina's embellishing and putting his own, maybe his own take on the movie and his own, what he wanted to see and how he wanted to remember it. But I thought that was real cool. So yeah, the other thing I thought was real cool, taking away from the book, was how people can develop really different people. You know, if they give each other a chance, they might find more common ground with each other than they might have thought. And so we got that with these two characters in this enclosed space in this prison, where they didn't have a way to escape, but ultimately they do develop a bond with each other. So, I'm really glad I got this read finally. I've been curious about it for a really long time. It actually turned out to be a little bit more moving than I expected at the end. I think I understand the Spider-Woman. The Spider-Woman story takes place sort of outside the movies, and I don't want to give it away because it would be a spoiler, but it's talked about in the movie, and then it's talked about in the book as well. It actually follows the movie quite closely, and I think I understand the Spider-Woman now, so I'll just leave that at that. So yeah, Kiss of the Spider-Woman by Manuel Puig. What I'm currently reading is Talking Pictures by Anne Hornaday, How to Watch Movies. This is a book all about movies, movie making. Anne Hornaday is the chief film critic for the Washington Post newspaper, and this book covers such topics as, let me just get the screenplay, acting, production design, cinematography, editing, sound and music, and directing. So it's just sort of how to go about what to watch a movie. Maybe not exactly like a film critic, but as guided through by a film critic. So I just now gotten started on this, and I'm really just on the introduction, so I don't have a lot to say about it yet, but I will have a chat on it coming up when I get it done in the relatively near future, I hope. So what my next planned read is going to be is The Dark Forest by Cixin. This is the second novel in the Remembrance of Earth's Past series. It's a trilogy. I do intend to read The Dark Forest, and then I do intend to, following this, I hope to read the third one, because I read the first one, The Three-Body Problem, earlier this year, and I did a chat on that, which I will link to in the details below. The Three-Body Problem won a Hugo Award. It was the first work in translation, if I remember correctly, to win the Hugo Award. Cixin is a Chinese science fiction author, so originally this was published in China in Chinese. So I'm looking forward to the second one, the second novel in that trilogy. And if you're interested to kind of learn the background, then I'll put a link, like I said, below to the first one. This story continues on from the first one, my understanding is. So that'll be coming up in the future. So until next time, take care. Bye.